Upon pondering, I found my existence at 50 to be thoroughly rewarding, boasting of two incredible daughters pursuing higher education, and my spouse Jade and myself preparing to celebrate our quarter-century marriage milestone. Everything appeared to be in perfect order. We were on the verge of completely owning a charming house in an affluent area and operated nearly new cars. My job as a regional sales director at a company with nationwide presence was on a positive trajectory. Jade, having returned to her profession 5 years prior, was thriving in her position. She initially joined Greg, a person we both knew, as his assistant, but quickly made her mark in the marketing department. After 3 years, Greg came to us with an offer. He wanted to grow the business but needed investment. He offered us a stake in the company, with Jade taking on a significant role in the sales and business development sector. It's fair to say she adapted brilliantly. 2 years later, she was out earning me. Therefore, I had no complaints, though Jade and I were so engulfed in our careers that we rarely had time together. In many ways, our lives were separate, resembling ships passing in the night. Please don't get the wrong idea. Our marriage was strong, full of warmth and tenderness. My sole desire was for more moments together. This situation was about to change unexpectedly. A powerful virus emerged, compelling nations to enforce lockdowns with stringent measures, some compared to martial law, as the sole mitigation strategy. This escalated into a pandemic on a grand scale, with responses reflecting the grave threat to human life. Borders were closed, educational and religious institutions as well as public events were suspended. Virtually all businesses deemed non-essential were closed, with the workforce directed to stay home. Those who could work remotely were forced to adapt, while only essential workers could proceed with their duties. Only grocery stores remained open, while a significant increase in law enforcement was observed to enforce these rules. This resulted in us being isolated at home, with each other's company as our solace. For me, this was the eagerly awaited chance, a glimmer of hope. Working from home seemed like a vacation. Jade, however, was worried their business was too fledgling to withstand the financial strain faced by larger companies. We set up separate work areas to minimize distractions. Our days were brightened by light-hearted debates over who would make coffee or lunch, marking a renaissance in our blissful union. It was reminiscent of our initial days together. We took turns cooking, shared household chores, relished in the leisure of weekend mornings, and embarked on cycling adventures. My enthusiasm for cycling was well known, and now Jade saw it as her exclusive reason to leave the house. At that time, outdoor activities were allowed only for exercise with a strict 2-meter social distancing rule. Cycling became our chosen activity. It provided a daily break from work and a change from domestic routines. During this time, Jade developed a keen interest in cycling and looked forward to it as eagerly as I did. This break from our usual routine gave us the chance to partake in activities usually missed due to work and travel commitments. As an extra gesture, I signed up for an online massage course, with Jade reaping the nightly benefits. This ushered in the peak of our intimacy, reminiscent of a magical revival, sending us back to the early days of our relationship. Our intimate moments were daily, sometimes more frequent. It was nothing short of remarkable. Jade remained stunning and full of life at 48. She decided to spend her time engaging in an online aromatherapy course, after which delivery vehicles were a common sight at our place, and the atmosphere was enchanting. The combination of aromatherapy and massage produced outstanding effects. Despite the beautiful moments, the situation started to worsen in the 3rd week. Maintaining such high levels of excitement and interest became difficult. We grew irritable, unsettled, and were in dire need of a boost to reignite the spark. I made an exquisite meal. Jade seemed to enjoy my cooking skills, yet immediately after finishing, she expressed her gratitude for the meal and swiftly went back to her tasks, leaving me alone. The stress started to take its toll on their enterprise. I wasn't blind to that fact and understood it, yet chances like these don't come often. A possibility to breathe new life into our dwindling marriage. She dedicated too much time to her computer or phone, chasing after clients and customers. My intention was to distract her from that digital world. I arranged a soothing bubble bath, surrounded the bathroom with aromatic candles, played some silky smooth jazz, and dimmed the lights. As I walked into her study, she was deeply focused on typing. She looked up, confused, as I offered my hand to her. She questioned, "Mark, what's this?" I lifted her out of her seat, and she stood with reluctance. "Mark, love, I need to continue working." I placed my finger over her lips, silencing her objections, and led her towards the bathroom. She objected all the way there. "Mark, really? My work is important." The moment she saw the bath and the candles, her face lit up. "Oh, you sweet thing, it's beautiful. But honey, I've got to work, darling. I'm sure your clients can spare you for one night. Tonight, relax, enjoy the champagne, and allow me to pamper your beautiful body." I helped her undress and gently took her hand as she entered the bath. Settling in, I handed her a glass of champagne. She took a deep breath. "Thank you, love. I'm overwhelmed by your thoughtfulness. I feel truly indulged," I chuckled. Worry not, love. I'll ask for my dues later, and I might just claim them from you." "I certainly hope that's a promise," she whispered. I left her to enjoy the bath, head back, eyes closed, listening to the tunes and relaxing in the soothing waters. As I headed to the break room, passing her study, I noticed her phone vibrating. Concerned it might interrupt her, I went to mute it but saw a message from Greg and decided to look, thinking it could be critical. The message I read, "I can't wait to taste you again," left me stunned. Scrolling through, I found explicit messages and pictures. This was no fleeting dalliance, it was significant. Sitting there, heart racing, I was dumbfounded when Jade called, "Darling, could I have more champagne?" handing her another glass, and observing her satisfied, beaming expression, I found myself speechless. She sighed, a smile of contentment on her face. "Thanks, love." Returning to her study, a profound sorrow overwhelmed me. After everything, raising a family, creating a life together over 25 years, I felt shattered. Engulfed by rage, I stepped into the cold night, attempting to suppress the overwhelming feelings. I yearned for her to feel my pain, my humiliation, my profound shame. It was irrational and unreasonable, yet I had crafted a plan. I sifted through her phone, picked out videos and images, and then sent them to her entire contact list: friends, family, clients, over 300 contacts. Got an unexpected notification. I linked my phone to my computer and transferred everything over. Driven by a need to see what captivated her, so I logged onto her computer. Her engagement with him was primarily through email. Finding many emails akin to the first, I forwarded these to her contact list as well. I removed my USB drive after transferring everything once more. I gathered as much evidence as possible. It was then I realized my marriage was over. I longed to leave, but we were trapped together by an ongoing pandemic with no way out. Previously, we had turned the space above the garage into a bedroom for our daughter before she went off to college, to give her some privacy. I began moving my things into that room. It would be my refuge until the end. Jade found me mid-move, wrapped in a towel, as I was relocating my belongings for the third time. Seeing me carrying a load, she asked sharply, "What on earth are you doing?" "I'm moving to Chanel's room until we navigate through this ongoing health crisis, Mark." "What's happening?" "Your actions are scaring me. You're acting without logic." "Move away, Jade. From now onwards, our marriage is over." I planned to start divorce procedures as soon as it's possible. I moved her forcefully aside as she screamed, Mark, talk to me. What is going on?" "Soon it will all make sense. Just leave me alone. I suggest you get in touch with a lawyer immediately," she shouted after me as I walked away, leaving her in shock. I isolated myself within the house, waiting for the turmoil to follow. It wasn't before there was furious pounding on the door. Jade was sobbing and screaming without control. "Mark, you monster, oh God, why won't you talk to me? Damn it, you've ruined everything. For Christ's sake, say something, you." "Jade, maybe Greg and his charming acquaintance can solve this for you." After a moment of silence, then followed her sorrowful sobs. "Mark, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you when I kept silent," she cried out in annoyance. "Lord, it was just a casual fling." How she could act so offended after what she did is astonishing. I hope it was worth it because it ended everything we worked towards. "Why, Jade?" "Tell me why." Her weeping continued, her voice becoming muffled as she said, "Mark, it was merely a casual thing. It's trivial, just physical. It was wrong, I admit, but it meant nothing. Had you talked to me, we could have gotten past this." Trivial, indeed. It went on for months, those messages. "Mark, please open the door so we could talk properly. Let me explain." "Let's talk it out." "No, Jade, there's no room for conversation now. Now, we just have to deal with the consequences." "Indeed, you've made quite the scene," she regretted. Lord Mark, you might have ruined Greg's marriage as well. I haven't caused any harm. You're the one who created this disaster while you. Don't come crying to me about his marriage. Mark, if we had just spoken, we might have tried to fix things, find a way through this. But now it's all out in the open. Only God knows what our daughters will think, or our parents, for that matter. I never thought you could be so heartless, so angry. Heartless, angry, my God, Jade, you have an affair for half a year with our friend and you call me vile? For heaven's sake, you're being irrational. Mark, darling, it didn't need to be public. We could have worked it out between us. It's not the end of everything. To hell with that, it's the end for me. Mark, open the door. Love, please, let me fix this. Stay away, Jade. I just want some peace to sleep and clear my mind. It took her half an hour of banging on the door before she realized I was not going to answer. Eventually, she went back inside the house, leaving me with my intense anger. I powered up my laptop and sorted her messages into a folder to send to my lawyer. I was determined to begin divorce actions the following day. No second thoughts crossed my mind. My conscience was clear. Our relationship had definitively come to an end. As I prepared all the required evidence, my phone kept buzzing. I had set it to silent, choosing not to deal with anyone directly yet. I assumed it was either our kids or our parents trying to contact me. I needed a moment to gather myself before talking to them. The night went on. I stayed awake, tossing and turning, barely sleeping. By 9 a.m. I rose, walked around the house to clean up and have some breakfast. Entering through the back door, I saw Jade at the counter making coffee. She turned to look at me briefly. Morning, Mark. Want some? Her look was unkempt, her eyes puffy and red. No, thanks. I'll make mine once you're done. I have to take a shower, I answered. Suit yourself, she remarked. I withdrew to the bathroom, taking a shower to prepare for what lay ahead. As I stepped into the kitchen, Jade offered her smartphone to me. Hesitantly, I took it, aware that the conversation with the person on the line was inevitable. Hey Mark, Greg here. I just wanted to apologize for everything. Jade isn't to blame, it's all on me, he started. Interrupting him, I declared. Enough, Greg. It's over. We'll sort this out face to face once the pandemic is over. I ended the call before he had a chance to say more. Jade watched in silence. Mark, he was trying to say sorry to make amends, I snapped. His apology means nothing to me. He should brace himself for our next conversation. As I walked by her, I noticed she had made coffee for me. I threw it away and brewed a new pot. Her expression hardened. I made that coffee for you, sure, and it probably had poison in it, I shot back. Jade, I don't want to see or talk to you. After my coffee, I'm calling my lawyer, and you should too. She reached out to catch my hand, trying to stop me. Mark, darling, please, can't we just talk this over calmly? Maybe we can get past this. We've survived worse. This is just another obstacle. Let me explain, and I think we can work things out. All right, Jade, go ahead, I reluctantly agreed. She paused, leaning on the sink. I don't know, dear. Maybe it's the fear of nearing 50, feeling less attractive. It's different for a woman. I've always been noticed by men. I'm aware of my looks. But as I grew older, that attention faded. Younger men stopped noticing me, leaving me feeling old and overlooked. Greg gave me compliments, made me feel desired. When I opened up, he kissed me and I didn't resist. But honestly, it was just physical. That's shallow, Jade. It's all about your fear of aging. Aging happens to everyone. You should have talked to me. Let me help you feel better, really. Well, Mark, you seem more distinguished now than when we were young. I see younger women looking at you when we're out. You've grown more attractive, while I feel old next to you. Ah, we were supposed to grow old together. That's the journey of life. I dreamed of us aging together, sharing our lives till the end. How much I love you. Through her tears, she said, we still can, Mark. I love you. I've always loved you, and that hasn't changed. Shaking my head, I sighed. Get a lawyer, Jade. You're going to need all the help you can get. As I made my coffee, I went into the living room and settled on the small couch. What a terrible mess. All I wanted was to escape, but here I was, caught in the turmoil. Sipping my coffee, my phone rang again. Melissa, Greg's wife. Hey, Mark, she said, voice breaking. I'm sorry, I don't even know what to say, but thank you for letting me know. It's okay, Melissa. I had to do it for my peace of mind. What's your plan? She asked, sounding weary. It's all so messed up. I dream about leaving him, getting a divorce, cutting him off. But it's not simple. Our kids are young, Our finances are tied up in the business, and we're deep in debt. Leaving now means going back to my parents, which would be awful. You have to do what you think is right." Then she questioned, "And you? What will you do?" "I'm calling my lawyer as soon as we hang up to begin divorce proceedings." "I'm so sorry, Mark. Is there no way to make amends?" "No, for me it's over," I answered. We talked a little more before ending the conversation. My attorney was taken aback upon learning of the incident. He had played a role in every critical decision in our lives, including our investments in Greg's project. He inquired about my future steps, to which I firmly stated my decision to seek a divorce. I offered to present proof, yet he laughed, remarking that although her guilt and adultery are legitimate grounds for divorce, it wouldn't alter the outcome. Regardless, she's eligible for half of everything, he noted. Heeding his advice, I said, "Just send over the forms, and I'll complete them. However, I insist on citing adultery. I desire its public acknowledgement. The wisest advice I can give is to stay composed, my friend. You're currently overwhelmed with anger. I'll forward the documents, but take a moment to ponder over this. The decisions you're making now will have long-lasting effects," he suggested. Later, while I was filling out the forms, my phone buzzed. It was Katie, my eldest. "Dad, what's going on?" "I just got off the phone with Mum, and she's beside herself with grief." I couldn't make sense of her words. "Are the emails and messages for real? Is this some kind of harsh prank?" She was in disbelief. Her mother, so gentle and affectionate, whom she revered. Her shock was evident. I sighed deeply and confirmed, "Yes, it's all true. I found out just yesterday, just like everyone else. The source of the leak doesn't matter." "What are you planning to do?" "I'm going through with the divorce." "What other choice do I have?" Her intake of breath was sharp. Then came her appeal, "Daddy, please, isn't divorce too drastic? Can't we get past this somehow? We're talking about Mum and Dad. This has to be a mix-up. You've been together for so long, and she adores you. You must see that I thought I did." I replied, "I would have bet my life on it. But now the only thing left for me is to hold back." "You can't mean that, Dad. It's just the anger speaking. Please, just take a moment. Perhaps counseling could be the answer." "Sadly, Buttercup, I've made up my mind to leave. She's caused me enough shame." Our conversation went on. She tried to change my mind, and we ended up repeating ourselves over and over. Eventually, she ended the call, just as confused and frustrated as I was. Julie, my other child, stayed in touch with Katie, wasting another afternoon trying to alter my stance. Sadly, she doubted the situation's reality, believing perhaps a bizarre hacker was to blame. Despite her persuasive reasoning, I remained unmoved. I filled out the forms and returned them to Arthur with my signature. Calling him, he suggested another piece of advice: to split our financial ties at once to avoid any potential scandal. His suggestion sounded reasonable, so I proceeded to untangle our financial situation. We had only one bank account, a joint one used for all our expenditures, credit cards, mortgages, the works. To open a new account required a visit in person. It wasn't something I could arrange over the phone. Our finances were deeply intertwined. The only silver lining was that she was just as handicapped by the situation, keeping the funds temporarily safe. The rest of the day went much the same. I received calls from friends and family, each clamoring for the latest news. By evening, I was drained from having to recount the story repeatedly. Jade's parents were particularly stubborn, refusing or unable to grasp the situation, convinced I had hatched some malicious plot to defame their daughter. Come dinner, I wandered into the kitchen in search of something to eat when Jade confronted me. "Can we talk this over, Mark? Please, we need to work through this. Katie and Julie are devastated. You've scared them immensely with your dire pronouncements." "It's not overblown rhetoric. I've been honest with them," I answered. "Jade, I've already spoken to Arthur and begun the divorce process." "My goodness, Mark, this is madness." "Honey, it was just a physical lapse. There was no love involved or plans to run away with him. It was inconsiderate and selfish, but it's not the end of the world. You're making too much of it." "No, it was my initial unawareness of these events happening in plain sight that was the overreaction. My goodness, I must be completely naive. The two of you must have found this extremely entertaining. Indeed, at every one of your family events, you two must have delighted in the situation." "No, sweetheart, that's not how it was. We never took the situation lightly or even discussed it. Half a year, Jade, don't say there wasn't ever a time you joked about avoiding or getting away. Half a year." Her expression dropped. "We never ridiculed you or Melissa. Say what you like, but I feel totally misled. All along, I've adored you, presented you with flowers for your birthday, and there he was, offering you fleeting moments. My goodness, how many times did we have close moments after you'd seen him? Absolutely never, she declared. I would never deceive you in that way. I value you. I regret it. I didn't think about the consequences. I never meant to hurt you. It all started as light-hearted teasing and fun. Please, Mark, can we just sit down and talk? Definitely not. It's over. You'll get the papers in about a week. Just sign them and send them back. I will not do that under any circumstances. There's no divorce on the horizon. You're not thinking clearly. We can fix this. I remained silent, and she broke down crying. Mark, you've already wrecked me, my career, and Greg's business. What else do you want as retribution? It's not about revenge. It's for closure and to move on. I took the snacks and left, leaving her alone. The next day I was roused by Jade knocking on the door. I opened it to ask what she wanted, but she barged in. Mark, Greg, Melissa, and I discussed last night, and we came up with a plan to save the business. We intend to argue that the dissatisfied employee we fired hacked my email and masterminded the whole plot as payback for being let go. Say what you will. It doesn't matter to me, Mark. We need your help. To make this story believable, your endorsement is crucial. Will you help us? I laughed heartily and adamantly said no. If asked, I promised to tell the truth. It's important that everyone knows the kind of deceitful and despicable people they're dealing with. She was taken back by my strong response. Melissa agreed, ready to support us. Mark, I beg you. Greg and Melissa could lose it all. His image is shattered, and it's his own fault, not mine. She stamped her foot in dismay. But that's exactly our strategy. We'll tell everyone, the kids and our parents included. Choose as you see fit, but I won't be helping. In the following days, every time I came in, she was on the phone with clients, informing those who had received the notification. I stayed away, yet Melissa approached me, seeking support. They were desperate to rehabilitate the business and salvage Greg's reputation. Melissa seemed to have forgiven him and earnestly begged me to reconsider my position. I was utterly worn out by the whole affair and wished for its end, but couldn't escape the relentless turmoil. Our house had become a complete disaster zone. Katie had called me multiple times, her anger growing with each conversation. Even her mother had convinced her of an outlandish scheme to discredit her. She persuaded me to go with the flow, to pardon and overlook. All that was required of me was to show her the video clip, yet I found myself unable to. Instead, I faced her mother directly. She was in her office, more occupied than ever with new clients. I pulled up a chair beside her desk, sat down and folded my arms. Jade, you have to come clean to Kathy and July. Their persistent hacker theory is driving me mad, I demanded. She flinched, wondering why we should upset the balance when it might as well remain undisturbed. Because they incessantly badger me. Every day they scold me on the phone, questioning why I'm putting you through the agony of a divorce. They paint me as the culprit I elucidated. She leaned forward, propping her elbows on the table, and gazed directly into my eyes. Mark, if you'd permit, I'd make amends for everything. Allow me the opportunity to repair our bond. Pardon me, and let's begin afresh. We've succeeded in winning back all our clients, and it appears we're almost at our usual level, Jade offered. Unless you come clean to the girls, I'm left with no alternative but to unveil the final piece of evidence at my disposal, I cautioned. Mark, why can't we just leave things as they are? In such a case, no one suffers, I suffer. The girls now see me as the foe because I reject your version of events. It's your responsibility to tell them, or I'll do it, I rebutted. No, that's unfair. I have no wish for a divorce, and the girls and I are still adapting. I refuse to ruin it. Moreover, there's nothing you could reveal that would change their minds, she contended. I pulled out a USB drive from my pocket and waved it in front of her. This contains footage of you spending time with Greg. I'm convinced it could sway them, I claimed. She looked like she might faint. Oh my God, you shouldn't, I stood firm, making it clear that either she would inform them or I would spread it among everyone. We knew, our parents and children included. God, Mark, you're so heartless. Why do we have to divorce? Greg and I are over. Give us another chance and I swear to devote the remainder of our existence to rectifying things. You can't fix anything, Jade. Even if forgiving you was possible, trusting you anew would be unthinkable. I'd always be suspicious, pondering over whom you might be betraying me with. I mean, Greg may not be the only one, there could be many more. She yelled vehemently. Get out. Leave now. I stood up and headed for the door, retorting, either you tell them, or I will. A few days later, however, my daughter called to apologize for being so harsh on me. She had spoken with her mother, who had asked her to be more gentle with me, promising that we'd resolve our matters independently. Clearly she hadn't confessed the truth, but at least now Katie was slightly more understanding when I called. Discussing the sale of our house with the real estate agent enraged Jade. Upon bringing it up, she became unglued. Jesus, Mark, we can't sell our house. How will it look to others? We've spent hours convincing everyone we were okay, and now you're contemplating selling. Her indifferent reaction surprised me slightly. Listen, Jade, we both require a place to live. Considering you're unable to purchase my share of the house, remaining here isn't feasible for you. I have no desire to stay. This place holds only bitter memories for me. It looks like selling the property, and parting ways is the most sensible option, she declared, seizing my hand tightly and peering into my eyes. Or maybe we could stay and attempt to work through this. Mark, my affection for you is as strong as it was on the day we wed. I don't wish for us to separate. Can't we endeavor to solve our problems? For someone proclaiming his love, you have a strange manner of showing it. Love isn't proven with secrets. Clutching my hand tighter, with tears flowing down her cheeks, she exclaimed, I made a mistake. It was thoughtless and selfish, but it doesn't diminish my love for you. We've both made errors over the years, Mark. We can get through this. Jade, you simply don't understand. You've been lying to me for months, and would have continued if I hadn't stumbled upon those messages. You say it's over between you two, but if those texts hadn't been found, it would still be happening, wouldn't it? She gently stroked my hand. Mark, please, would it have continued, she uttered, lowering her eyes to the floor as silence enveloped us until I disrupted it with a growl. Exactly. That's what it would have been. Correct, she whispered softly. Perhaps. But circumstances have shifted. We've grown significantly closer since the lockdown began. You've become more affectionate and attentive. Things are different now, she pleaded. It's finished, and if you grant me this chance, we can get past this as though it never occurred. Jade, you seem unfazed by remorse, simply expecting absolution and oblivion from me. Allow me to make one thing clear. Life isn't as forgiving. I pulled my hand away. The decision's been made to sell the house. Tomorrow it goes on the market. With those words, I left her engulfed in profound sorrow. Choosing to sell at such a time was far from ideal. The constraints meant that real estate agents were unable to personally inspect the property or host viewings. All had to be conducted virtually, relying entirely on the photographs I had taken. I spent a whole day photographing the property, aiming to highlight its finest features, forwarded the images to our agent, and by the following day the listing was live. This set off a flurry of phone calls from concerned relatives and acquaintances curious about our situation. Jade managed these calls, spinning elaborate stories about our quest for a better living situation once the pandemic subsided and we were less restricted, promising a near future of normality. Slowly, we were granted more liberties. The expectation was that life would inch back to its usual rhythm, yet that was still a month away. During this period, Jade and I found a semblance of tranquility. We shared meals and engaged in conversation without descending into arguments or shouting. As the bitterness gradually dissipated, one night over dinner she asked, "How can I change your mind? I'm willing to do anything." I looked at her and exhaled. I doubt anything could. My faith in you has crumbled, but if there's any chance to salvage our relationship, your first step should be to resign from your job. What she exclaimed. That's impossible. I have significant shares in the company. We own 35% of it. Oh, Mark, I cherish my role. I love being involved. Please believe me, it's over between me and Greg. It's done. You promised me as much 25 years ago on our wedding day. Clearly that meant nothing. Why should now be any different? She leaned back. Mark, I've made mistakes. I acknowledge that. But I am committed to making amends. What else can I offer? Quit your job. To me, the solution seems simple. If you're serious about trying again, that's my stipulation. And yet, there are no promises from my side. She shook her head in disbelief. I don't see how that's relevant. Mark, I love my work. I've given it my all. Why can't we simply move forward? Because You'll be working together daily, traveling together. I cannot accept that. If you're serious about reconciliation, that's the initial step. No, Mark, that's unfair. I'll do anything needed, but resigning isn't an option. That's fine, Jade, but it clearly demonstrates where we stand, doesn't it? This exchange sparked further lengthy discussions and disputes, with our daughters trying to act as peacemakers. However, they agreed with my point of view. They tried convincing her to see reason, yet she persisted in her refusal. It's unclear whether her defiance was due to stubbornness, a belief in having it all without compromise, or simply naivety. Later, as we settled in to watch the evening news, she nervously snuggled up to me. "Mark, can you spend the night next to me? I long for your return to our shared bed." Pulling her in, I kissed her forehead gently and said, "That doesn't seem like a good idea. It would only bring further confusion." She tried to deepen our embrace. "Mark, my love, perhaps this could be a step toward reconciliation." "I have no interest in reconciliation. I am ready to move forward at this." She broke down in tears, fleeing to the bedroom, her weeping clearly audible. I turned off the TV and went to bed. The divorce papers, still unsigned, arrived from the lawyers. Jade refused to sign, preferring to fight it out. It took several days of intense arguments and my threat to release a video of her enjoying a party at Greg's place to finally persuade her to sign. Eventually, with the lifting of restrictions, she accepted the inevitable and agreed. The property was swiftly purchased within a matter of weeks. I moved into a simple city apartment, and similarly, Jade relocated closer to her job. Our daughters displayed a period of bitterness and critical behavior towards me. Julie, in particular, was quite severe, aligning with her mother and criticizing me for my absence of support. It was a while before we managed to engage in dialogue. "Julie, can you recall any moments when I acted on a whim or too harshly towards you? Think back and identify any occasion where my response was hasty or overly strict." After reflecting, she responded, "Not once, Dad. You've always been fair with us. That's what makes this feel so wrong." The frustrating part, Julie, is your failure to realize that I'm conscious of the truth and my reactions are not out of proportion but a logical result of the situation, I explained. She sighed deeply, looking my way. "Are you suggesting Mum was indeed unfaithful?" I confirmed with a slow nod. "I refuse to believe that, Dad. It's not like her. She loves you. Why didn't you consider therapy or something?" Similar. If you were in a situation where your boyfriend cheated, Julie, would you give him another chance the moment the truth dawned on her, became apparent our relationship ended on good terms, facilitating a smoother divorce process? We split everything down the middle, evenly. Although Jade initially coped relatively well, the real challenge emerged with Melissa. She found it hard to accept that Jade and Greg still worked together, causing distress for her and me alike. How could she ever trust them again? Our communications broke down. She blamed me partly for their problems. Melissa thought if I had forgiven Jade and stayed, her difficulties with Greg could have been avoided. Greg was Jade's trusted advisor, but Melissa's continuous grievances caused a rift between them, compelling him to keep his distance, which significantly impacted Jade. She frequently spent nights in tears during phone calls with our daughters, who pleaded with me to reconsider and resolve the issue. Once restrictions were eased, I grabbed the chance. I had a vow to fulfill, and the time had come. On the day designated for settling matters, I awaited in their office parking lot. As Greg saw me, he stopped dead. "Mark, I'm sorry," I aired, "and I regret the turmoil." Paused, I took off my jacket, placing it on the hood of my car. "Greg, I assured you I'd face you now. Here I am. Let's sort this maturely." He immediately retreated. "Look, I've no desire to fight. It solves nothing. After your betrayal and deceit, you're no friend of mine." As I moved closer, he realized the unavoidable nature of our clash. He put his briefcase down and started to take off his jacket. In that moment, I charged at him, although we were equally matched in height and not fighters by nature. My anger lent me an advantage, an intense, disquieting sensation seeking outlet. When I hit him, the discomfort slightly subsided, and my stress relieved. Not every blow was mine. He landed some hits too. Nevertheless, driven by fury, I continued. The arrival of a police officer pulling me away was what stopped me. Glancing back, I noticed a small audience, including Jade, who stood shocked, covering her mouth. The officer kept us apart, and Greg and I glared at each other, bloodied and furious. Jade attempted to approach, but the officer signaled her to halt. "Please, ma'am, step away. I've got this." She stayed put, her eyes fixed on me, filled with entreaty and inquiry. The officer, breaking the silence, led us towards the patrol car for questioning. Mark chose not to blame me or press any charges. He merely described the incident to the officer as a minor dispute, nothing significant. The officer, though doubtful, found no grounds to argue. He proposed a handshake between us. Greg's handshake lingered. "I'm sorry, man, this wasn't meant to happen. Just a bad decision." He let go as I dismissed his apology and walked to my car. Jade ran to me. "Mark, I regret my actions every day. Can't we try again? After 25 years, Mark, isn't that worth something?" "I'm sorry, Jade, but it's not possible. My regrets are daily too. How did I not see it? Your affair was right under my nose and I was blind to it. We can't be together because I'd always doubt your loyalty and company. I left feeling a bit more free, empowered, and notably better. While violence generally solves nothing, sometimes it appears unavoidable. When restrictions lifted and normality resumed, the media was filled with hopeful stories about overcoming the pandemic. However, the situation remained grim. While many survived, others did not. Countless people were rendered jobless. Numerous establishments closed indefinitely. Food banks faced overwhelming demand, and poverty escalated to levels not seen since the Great Depression. Truly, some situations simply could not withstand the test of time. Dear listeners, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content.